from the street with dirty shoes on your feet. That's a technical foul.
Ho, ho, ho. Happy Hanukkah, Matt.
Did you kind of realize what you did have?
Yep, I sure did. That is my American centrist approach to all holidays, I guess. Apologies, everyone.
Yeah,
Welcome back to another episode of Happy Amblin'. I'm your host, Diego Crespo. With me is my co-host, Matt Garingo.
I'm Matt Garingo.
I'm so sorry.
Hi.
That was a genuine accident. I'm so sorry. We're here to talk about 8 Crazy Nights and the Goonies here on the Happy Amblin' Steven Spielberg and Adam Sandler retrospective, where we talk about all the films they either directed or starred in. Adam Sandler's never directed anything, and Spielberg has never starred in anything. But who knows? Maybe this podcast will encourage them to switch roles.
I think you're forgetting about Spielberg's star-turning performance in Austin Powers and Goldmember.
He's actually very funny in that. At least I think so.
Oscar. And then a stunt double flips away.
No, he can just do that.
Wouldn't that be something to find out?
Yeah, he just does that. So, we're going to talk about 8 Crazy Nights first, because we need to get that out of the way. There's no point in beating around the bush. This is not good.
This was a pretty fucking awful movie.
It's one of the worst films I've ever seen in my entire life. And I want to take this moment to apologize to all other Adam Sandler films that I said were grating, or I didn't like, or that I hated. You know, Little Nick is looking pretty good right now, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what's shocking. It's like, holy shit, this, like, is so much worse than even the worst Adam Sandler film we've covered. Like, Going Overboard. Like, this is so much worse.
Oh, you know what? It totally is. I have 1 or 2 positive notes about this film. But, you know, like we talked about with Going Overboard, it's like, you had no money. It's these people's first film together. You know, like, that's the kind of movie that's like, look, it didn't work out. There's no reason to be mean to it. It is a bunch of young, independent artists coming together to make something, and it didn't work.
And also, there's at least an occasional moment of comedy in Going Overboard. Mm-hmm. It's usually fleeting, but there's like a moment or two. I can't think of a funny moment from this movie. One that actually made me laugh in any... there was maybe one moment, and that's it.
You're going to have to bring us back to that singular moment, because I'm at a loss.
But I think it's also something where there were moments where I understood them as being funny, but by that point I hated the film so much that it didn't matter. Like,
this is a reprehensible, ugly, mean-spirited, disgusting film, and not in like a fun way, like something like Sabotage.
Yeah.
This is just like, it's upsetting, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is like the first, because I'm pretty sure we're going to have moments like this coming in the future.
I don't know.
But like this is the first like hateful Sandler film. And it reminds you of like how close his other movies are just riding that line, where some like are a little more hateful than others. But I'll be honest, like of the ones we watched, I never felt any of them were 100% hateful. But this one totally is.
Yeah, I think what saves the other films, especially in hindsight, is that Sandler's characters that he plays, they tend to have like a charm to them, at least if not in their writing or direction, in Sandler's like performances. He's like a likable screen presence. And what I will say nice about the film is that I actually think like an Adam Sandler animated musical is not a terrible idea. And I actually think the animation's pretty good.
Well, that's the other thing, is that I was going to say, of one of the few positives I thought you were going to throw out, is that the animation is, like, really good. To the movie's detriment, because it's, like, very warm, and, like, it gets you in, like, the weird, like, holiday spirit, right? Mm-hmm. And then what you're watching on screen is just repellent. like South Park on a bad day.
Oh, like, yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
And I believe the worst thing, this might make you hate this even more if you weren't aware of this, I believe a lot of the animators that worked on like the Iron Giant came over to this after that movie like tanked.
I don't know why I never saw that, but I can completely see it now. And yeah, that does make me hate this more because the Iron Giant is one of the greatest animated films ever.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah. It says here like there's like multiple people worked on it, and one of them was Warner Brothers Animation Studios.
Oh my god.
So, yeah. It's depressing. And it's like, I gotta say, the animation is like so good. It really is really good. And the movie is just so repugnant. Like, I would be like here coming like, look, I didn't like the movie, but the animation's real nice, so you might want to check it out. Like, but I can't even do that. It's so, like, what I'm saying, the animation's beautiful, and then I'm thinking of like the scene where he throws the old man in the porta potty and he rides down the hill and then he comes out covered in porta potty shit, and it's like, well, that's the best animated porta potty shit I've ever seen, and it just makes it so much worse.
Everything with the deers involving that too.
I know.
It's like what is that? The screenplay is by Adam Sandler, Alan Covert, Brooks Arthur, and Brad Isaacs, with a story by Adam Sandler. This is very clearly a personal story for him, which is unfortunately revealing, I think. But all
right, let's wind the clock back a little bit. Sandler famously did the Hanukkah Song, which I believe he performed on SNL for the first time, but he also did like versions of it like at stand-up clubs, and it's on his album. And it's a weird song, basically like, hey kids, I know you can feel, if you're Jewish, you might feel down at Christmas because everyone's got Christmas trees, but I'm going to sing a song about all the famous people who are Jewish, which is an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
And it became like a hit, you know? People, and I think it's one of these things where people who don't like Adam Sandler know the Hanukkah Song.
Yeah, like I have family members that like just can't sit through Adam Sandler films, but everyone loves the Hanukkah Song.
And it is that weird reminder of like, I think Passover's the more important holiday for Judaism, but Hanukkah is kind of positioned as like going up against Christmas. So there's like a weird need to be like, Hanukkah should be as important as Christmas. And there's just not that culture around Hanukkah in like pop culture. There's no real Hanukkah movies that I can think of. Can you think of one?
This one?
Yeah, there's like this one and the Rugrats Hanukkah special.
Oh yeah.
And Hanukkah Harry from SNL.
Oh, I missed the boat on that one.
Which I believe Hanukkah Harry's played by John Lovitz, and I think John Lovitz isn't Jewish.
Oh.
So it's like weird. But yeah, I'm trying to think. There's got to be other Hanukkah stuff that I just can't think of. But again, nothing that's like, oh, there's the definitive Hanukkah film, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel's probably going to do something with Hanukkah at some point.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, the lead in that show is not Jewish either.
Well, also, but that's also like, again, that's like a special episode. You know, like every show has like, oh, it's the Christmas episode. And I bet you there's plenty of shows that have had the Hanukkah episode. Mm-hmm. You know, or usually just the holiday episode. But they're like, the most definitive Hanukkah story I can think of is like Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins. But I don't think that's ever been adapted into a film or cartoon. Can you think if it has?
No, not that I know of.
Do you know that story?
I do not. You really
oh
got
my God,
me off
Herschel
guard
Hanukkah.
there.
That's a really good one. It's about a guy named Herschel who like goes to town. It's like, oh, we can't celebrate Hanukkah because the Hanukkah goblins show up anytime we light the candles. So like to banish the goblins, if I remember correctly, I haven't read this since childhood. Herschel has to trick each goblin into lighting the different candles every night, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like every night the goblin shows up. It's like, oh, Herschel, I heard about you. I'm going to fuck you up. And then Herschel's like, oh, all right. But before we fight, can you light this candle? Like, we can't see. And the goblin's like, all right, sure. And then lights the candle. It's like, oh, you fucking tricked me. You fuck. And it's like, every night the goblin's like, oh, I'm not going to fall for that shit. And then, something happens. It's a fun story. I feel like it could make like a good 30-minute cartoon. I'm surprised it hasn't been adapted. And so it's like, I bet you Sandler was like, all right, I have this power now. I have my own company, Happy Madison. The Hanukkah Song is like a popular thing. I would like to do the definitive Hanukkah film. And it should be a cartoon because, cartoons, holidays, whatever, right? And you feel like he was trying to do kind of It's a Wonderful Life, which is so disgusting to bring up right now. Like, he wanted to tell a story about a guy who he's lost the holiday spirit because his life's terrible, and a story of like a guy who does the right thing but is never really rewarded. And, like, these two forces meeting, and then they rediscover the spirit of the holidays and giving and all that shit, right? Like, there's the skeleton of that exists in this film. Mm-hmm. And then he was like, hey, Alan Covert, come over and let's just come up with the worst jokes imaginable. Like, he couldn't stop himself from doing the, like, also we're going to be raunchy and we're going to have poop jokes and fat jokes and sex jokes.
And horribly racist stereotypes.
Horribly racist stereotypes because Rob Schneider needs money. And it's like, if he hadn't done that and played it more straight, he could have done an okay movie, And I guess here's the other thing is, we can talk about any Sandler film like Big Daddy or The Waterboy or Little Nicky probably is the biggest offender, where there's like really disgusting stuff in all of those movies. But there are funny moments as well.
And Henry Winkler covered in bees.
Yeah. And it's like, but there's nothing here that's funny. Like, even accidentally. And it just makes it awful. It's so bad. It was disgusting.
I don't know if this is the same production, but Adam Sandler's love interest, Jennifer Friedman, is voiced by Jackie Titone, and that would end up becoming his wife. She would end up becoming his wife, so maybe they met on this film?
Maybe.
There you go, something good out of this. Hopefully.
Yeah, and again, it's so weird when you see, like, her animated as a normal person, and she's got, like, a kid, And, like, all of that's animated really normally, and then it's like, hey, look at that fat fucker's jockstrap. And then you have possibly the best animated fat person jockstrap you ever seen. And you're just like, why is there a romance and that next to each other? Why does this... It's... I was just disgusted by this. I was truly, truly disgusted. Like, I don't know... I really want to be the guy who comes on here and, like, defends some of these movies. As you can see in, like, the Little Nicky episode. But... fuck this movie.
Yeah, it's not... It is the opposite of good. And we've talked about animation as a medium for films and television, where, like, you really are able to keep a lot of the control of the story you want to tell. And I think that's almost like his detriment too, where it's like Sandler had so much control over the direction of this, where he put, like, literally everything into it, and that includes the most repulsive shit he's ever, like, concocted. In fact, the Rotten Tomatoes consensus calls it a nauseating concoction, which, we talk our shit about Rotten Tomatoes, as should all of you, but, even a broken clock, it's that's
Here's
pretty
something
accurate.
that's shocking. Roger Ebert gave it 2 stars. Where does the second star come from?
That
like,
is
that's
actually
almost
pretty shocking. What the fuck, dude?
That's almost praise from Ebert on the Sandler scale.
Yeah,
like,
what the hell?
it's...
Hang on, I want to look up his review of it now.
Okay, I'll look it up since I'm right here.
Okay. All right.
I'm just gonna scan it real quick, see if he says anything positive.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna read the opening. Heaven help the unsuspecting families who wander into Adam Sandler's 8 Crazy Nights, expecting a jolly animated holiday fun fest. The holidays aren't very cheerful in Sandlerville, which is why the PG-13 rating... This is PG-13?!
Yeah, I mean...
Whoa. Ratings mean nothing.
No woman in this movie enjoys having sex, so it's PG-13.
Oh, this fucking country. The holiday... Okay, PG-13 rating mentions frequent and crude sexual humor. The MPAA doesn't mention it, but there's also a lot of scatological humor in the film, in keeping with Sandler's inexplicable fascination with defecation, flatulence, and bodily fluids. He's right. Yeah, that is odd that just warrants a PG-13. Like, I'm not a huge stickler for, like, ratings at all. Fuck the MPAA. This is an R, I think. Like, it's so gross. How does that not warrant an R? This is, like, a genuinely disgusting movie.
Yeah. Here's an interesting series of lines from the middle of this review. It's interesting. Considering that his popularity and the movie's holiday packaging will attract a large number of teenage middle Americans not necessarily familiar with Jews, does he think this is a good way to get them started? Yes, I've argued the requirement that ethnic groups must present positive images of themselves. Yes, I've argued against the requirement that ethnic groups must present positive images of themselves in movies. I've defended Justin Lin's Better Luck Tomorrow, Chris Ayer's Skins, Tim Story's Barbershop. Like, I just didn't expect those things to be brought up.
No. Huh.
But those films are positioned to reach audiences that will understand them, decode them as their directors hoped they would. Yeah. Also, Hanukkah is shockingly, like, barely present in this movie, honestly.
Yeah, it's not like a driving force that kind of guides the narrative or the character arc. It's just kind of, like, in the background.
Yeah.
You know?
Because he's got the Hanukkah card from his dead family.
Yeah. I guess that's supposed to be, like, I don't know, like, dramatic weight, but that's putting a lot of work for the audience. Like, the film's not doing anything with that. It's just like, here's a Hanukkah film. And, like, I'm glad you brought up that this was very clearly, like, a big project for Sandler, for, like, being able to make a Hanukkah movie for everyone.
The definitive Hanukkah film.
But that did not happen here.
Not only did it fail miserably, I believe it set Hanukkah films back by, like, 30 years. Which means we got about another decade before someone tries again.
I'd be open for Sandler trying again, but don't let him come up with a story.
Do you remember the movie Christmas with the Cranks?
I remember the commercials. I probably haven't seen it, but I remember the commercials.
I saw it in theaters because Dan Aykroyd was in it. Yeah. Here was something that was, like, it was kind of like a window into, like, I didn't realize how flyover states exist. Because the big plot of that movie is that the Cranks are skipping Christmas, and people are like, how can you skip Christmas? And I grew up in, like, a heavy Jewish community, and I'm like, what are you talking? A lot of people don't celebrate Christmas. This isn't that strange, and I guess there are just parts of the country where that doesn't really happen. And, yeah.
Two Americas, you know?
Yeah, it really is. Although, I gotta say, Sandler, this movie bombed, so maybe that's, like, a good sign that this was even too much for the other America.
yeah, maybe.
Although the animators probably got blamed.
No, that's too bad.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't really think about that, like, in approaching this, too. Because, like, we're recording this way before Christmas. This will come out way before Christmas. Or Hanukkah. See, I'm doing it again. I'm so sorry. But, like, yeah, it's not... I don't know. I know people that don't celebrate Christmas, and it's just not like they don't have other like holiday interest or even religious interest. It's just not part of like their life, you know. And I don't know. Maybe that's just because like LA is like filled with literally everyone from everywhere. But I don't know. It's always been understandable to me. But I guess like I don't know. It's holidays are fucking weird. I don't have a point there. I think that's interesting. I like.
Also, 8 Crazy Nights. Do they really do anything with the 8 days that I can think of?
No, it just takes place over them. No, it doesn't even take place over all of them, does it?
I mean, I'm assuming it does just because of the title, but like, shouldn't it be a thing where it's like, maybe he's, here's what should have happened. Adam Sandler dies in the opening of this movie.
Oh my god.
He dies, but he was a horrible person in life, so he's got 8 days to like make Hanukkah special for 8 different people. And so it's a movie about him trying to do that. And he's got to fight like the asshole tendencies in himself. So it's like a countdown to what's going to happen at the end of the 8 crazy nights. And then none of that happened in this.
No.
Instead, all right, do you want to go over because there's basically 2 stories in this.
Sure.
Which is shocking number of stories for an Adam Sandler film.
Yeah, sure, let's get into it.
All right, the main character is Davy Stone, played by Adam Sandler. He's in his 30s. He's got a long criminal record. And I'm not going to go beat by beat. His fucking family died when he was a child on, like, Hanukkah. And it, like, fucked his life up forever, and he's never recovered. And he's now, like, an alcoholic because he's numbing the pain of not being able to deal with the loss of his family. Very heavy subject for this movie. Mm-hmm. And it is kind of nuts to hear them, like, in the middle of this movie when all the product placement sings at him. And one of them, like, he talks about, like, fuck you, I'm just going to drink. And one of the logos is like, this stuff only numbs the pain, don't make it go away. And it's nuts to hear a movie say that, because I feel like that's something people don't bring up a lot of the time, that people become alcoholics because they're numbing something horrible that happened to them. Mm-hmm. Or even just the pressures of life in general. And the movie, it's so weird because it's like, all right, this is a guy that's given up on life, but then his behavior isn't really that. He's just kind of an asshole.
Yeah, they don't correlate. Like, the character action isn't tied to, like, the trauma that is supposed to be driving him, really. Like, I like that you brought up, like, the alcohol thing, though. I think of, like, Shane Black, another dude who writes stuff around the holidays. Like, in The Nice Guys, like, the Ryan Gosling character. Like, he's a terrible alcoholic because he can't get over, the death of his wife. She dies in that movie, right? Sure, she died.
Because he couldn't smell and the house burned down.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, it's never said in the film, but you understand that he blames himself for that, and he's, like, drinking his pain away. So when he finally decides not to drink on the job, he's able to, like, save the day and be a hero to his daughter again, finally. Yeah. And it's, like, a great moment. It's, like, a great film. It's a huge, like, yeah! And this film, obviously, isn't, like, a film noir action movie, but it brings up that really, really controversial subject matter. And I'm only saying controversial because it's not brought up in this country, like, at all, ever. And it would have been really interesting to dive into that. Yeah. But that's not this film at all. Instead,
and, like, here's the thing, like, it's also, like, a pretty simple, like, oh, okay, yeah, he's numbing the pain. He's an alcoholic because he's numbing the pain. He's fucked up his life. Also, he's afraid to get close to anyone ever again because of this tragedy that happened to him. Like, that makes sense. There's been dozens of movies about this that aren't even that heavy. And it's like, oh, he doesn't want to get hurt again. So, like, when Whitey is trying to be nice to him, and at some point he just snaps on Whitey, and, like, because he drives him away because he's afraid of someone getting close to him again. But there's no, like, build up to that. He's an asshole to Whitey from, like, day one. And not, like, oh, I'm like kind of a dick, you know? Like, I'm gonna make it hard for you to love me type shit. It's like Whitey has a seizure and he like doesn't want to help him. And it's like, no, that's a big, like, that's bad.
Yeah. It's a little hard to come back from that. And the character in the film doesn't come back from that.
Yeah.
The narrative says he does by the resolution of the film, but we as the audience never get the grasp on that. So
yeah, like what really made him turn around?
well, the film had to end.
I guess, but also it's like here's this movie's logic of what happens. Adam Sandler, drunk, ruined his life. He suffered from tragedy. Blah blah blah. Oh, my phone's ringing. I gotta shut that off. Suffered from tragedy. Blah 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 blah. He commits a crime. He's gonna go to prison, but then this old man rises up and then is like, "I'll take care of him." And
what was that? How do you say it?
I'll take care of him. I don't know if that's what he sounded like, but I had to try.
That was pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and then this guy takes him in, and he doesn't improve. In fact, he just acts horrible. And then the guy is like, the old man's like, speaks the very obvious message where it's like, you know, you never got over the death of your parents. And he freaks out and snaps on him and like drives him away. Then he goes to a shopping mall and all the logos come alive and tell him to let it out. And then he finally reads the Hanukkah card his family left him. And so because of those logos, he decides, oh, I should be good to Whitey. That's not an arc.
Well, it's a sequence of events that occur on screen for an allotted period of time. Under 79 minutes, I believe. 76 minutes. This film is 76 minutes long.
Shocking. I was sitting here being like, good Christ, is this 2 hours? And then I'm like, no, I'm 45 minutes in.
Yeah. It feels way longer than that. How does that happen?
One
of the shortest films released in the last century. What the fuck?
And then, all right, and I guess now is the time to talk about the other plot in the film, which is the plot of Whitey Duvall, the guy who takes in Davy. He is the only good person in a town full of absolute monsters. And he's been good to people his whole life, and because of that, he expects to get an award, which is like the 35th annual one, I believe.
Yeah, it's the 35th anniversary, or he's been trying to get it for 35 years at least. Because the town's called Dukesbury, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So he wants to be recognized for his contribution to Dukesbury with the Dukesbury All-Star patch.
He wants to be validated by the absolute worst people on the planet. And I don't know why he thought 35 was his year. That's never really explained, where it's like, if I was Whitey, I would have maybe taken a hint between 1 and 34. Because he literally is the only good person in this town. And so he kind of expects to get an award. Also, goodness is its own reward, which is something that's never really grappled with in this film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he needs to be... So even Whitey still expects, like, you know, a transaction for his good action. Does that make them less good? You know?
It's weird. It's one thing where it's like, okay, it's just a medal. Like, that's not asking for a lot. It's literally the bare minimum, and the town couldn't even do that for the fucking old man. But for comparison, It's a Wonderful Life. In that movie, George Bailey, when shit goes bad, it's like real bad stuff. Like, he's in a financial bind and he might go to prison, you know? Like, shit goes really bad for George Bailey, and he's like, that's when he's like, I'm gonna kill myself, I wish I'd never been born. Because he's like, I did all this good shit my whole life, and now bad stuff's happening, and like, I can't recover from this. And he's like, why did I do any of that? And then he has a reminder, and it's like, look, all the good stuff you did, it really helped the world in a lot of ways, even ways you might not have noticed. And then at the end of the movie, it's like people show up and it's like, George, because we heard you were in trouble and you've helped all of us so much, so we're going to come together and help you out of this bind, you know? Where it's like, you know, you help people out, they'll help you back. That's very noble thinking and a very good Christmas lesson. But it's not like Whitey is like, oh no, Whitey had a heart attack and he can't afford his medical bills. Oh, the town's going to come together and help him, right? It's just a fucking patch.
I was getting really emotional because It's a Wonderful Life is one of the greatest films ever made.
I cry every fucking time.
Yeah, dude, it's just like,
movie.
It's so good, and you feel so good about life and everything about it, and it's just like, God, oh, what a picture.
Also,
and then you're like, and then fucking Whitey immediately brought back down to earth from this piece of shit. Oh my God.
Also, you know, Adam Sandler is the guy who could correct the one sin of It's a Wonderful Life, which is that Mr. Potter must be killed. And so, like, Adam Sandler could have just done, like, you know, the Jewish version of It's a Wonderful Life. And at the end of the movie, like, everyone comes and helps out, and then they go and beat the shit out of Mr. Potter.
Yeah, just do that.
It would have made total sense. You could have thrown him in the porta potty and thrown him down a hill. Like, I would have loved it in that context.
And then you have to end the film with him saying, "This is the happiest beating of my life."
Yeah. Oh, yes.
As opposed to this film's, "This is the happiest seizure of my life."
Yeah.
Which is a real line that is said in this motion picture from 2002.
Yeah, no one rushes to help him when he has a seizure.
I think they just leave stuff like that because if you start having the characters address it, the implication of how awful it is starts setting in, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, fuck, man, what a movie. What a terrible experience this was.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Awful film.
Oh my God, yeah.
We should run down the Sandler regulars that appear in this film and then get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. We won't be spending much longer on this one, but I also want to say this was directed by Seth Kearsley. I don't know what else this person did, but they haven't directed a single movie since.
Yes, and unfortunately through my research, it led me to the fucking Nostalgia Critic of all people.
What?
Because I guess the Nostalgia Critic did a, you know, one of his funny reviews of a comedy film. And he did one on 8 Crazy Nights. And I guess the director, like, emailed him afterwards and explained that, like, they were going to cut elements like the deer eating feces and change Whitey's voice a little bit. But test audiences, I guess, responded really well to the feces eating deer. Yeah.
I genuinely have this principle where I believe people are, at least in a broad sense, people can be inherently good. That statement you just read is proof of otherwise.
Yes.
That's pretty bad.
If it makes you feel any better, you have to remember that focus groups are bullshit.
Yeah, focus groups are the worst thing, or at least one of the worst things about making movies.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest, I would probably be okay with the Whitey voice in a better film.
I will give it this. I wish Whitey wasn't, like, such the butt of jokes or, like, a disgusting weirdo Hobbit man. Like, he's kind of like, Adam Sandler's like, "You're gross," and then Whitey's like, "Yep, I am." And I wish he had kind of just been an old man. Like, to offset Sandler's craziness. I will say, I was impressed. Like, you can hear Sandler's voice, because Sandler voices Davey, he voices Whitey, and he also voices Whitey's sister, Eleanor. And I can't hear Sandler's voice in that at all.
Yeah,
And I feel like maybe they did some post, like, pitching on it, you know, to make it sound better. But he did a good job of that woman's voice. And I will say that's the one moment I thought was somewhat funny when Whitey brings Davey home for the first time, and Eleanor thinks it's a home invasion.
Okay,
Like,
I'll give it that.
That was the one moment
yeah.
where I thought that was kind of funny. And because it was also like a character comedy moment. Like, of course this old lady would fear home invasions. Because if her home's invaded, she's dead. Like, and it was like the one moment where I was like, all right. But yeah, other than that, I hated this movie.
Yeah, no, it's awful. Let's run down the list, but I'll agree with your claim that Sandler is pretty reliable voice actor. He's like talented. Yeah. He's just fucking lazy.
And I will say, like, when he is singing, you can see, like, I won't say he's a great singer, but he's a competent singer. And it works for what the movie's going for.
Yeah, he doesn't have range vocally, but, like, when it comes to singing, at least. But, like, it would have fit the bill again in a better made film.
Can I tell you how much I wanted to kill everyone and then myself when I was watching the scene where, I can't even remember what happened, but they're driving home and they start... There's the duet where they sing about how when they were children they used to, they really got along and they were happy, and like what the fuck happened. Which is like it's simple but a really nice little song in the middle of this, and the animation's beautiful. Where like they'll do the flashbacks and like he drives past his old house and there's the tree we used to hang out under. There's us on the swings, blah blah blah, and then like they'll interject it with jokes about how Whitey like called a phone sex hotline once, and a weird transsexual joke involving the mayor.
Oh, yeah.
Where I think it's a horrible line where it's like, my wife used to be a he or something like that. And that's that weird like Sandler humor where it's like, that's disgusting, but like they're also like in love, which is a weird choice. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the more conservative tendencies popping out from this group, unfortunately.
And it's like, you could have had a good moment in this movie. You know, maybe that was like one moment where you could have fucking played it straight a little bit. And it's like, no. And I bet you Sandler sits there and is like, every Hanukkah I get letters from people who love this movie. Because I bet you that's true. That's probably his justification for it. But this one makes me angry because I know Sandler, even on the Sandler scale, can be better than this movie. And he could have made a good Hanukkah film, I think.
I think so too. The same team, he just can't be holding the reins like he did here completely. The idea itself is like fine. Like you talk about the framework and the skeleton of this movie, that could all be fine. But
not to jump ahead in like my opinions, but when we get to something like Hotel Transylvania coming a little later, that's one where you can tell like he kind of just handed over the animation shit and let that drive the movie a little more, and it works a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't think it would be shocking to say on this that I think Hotel Transylvania is better than 8 Crazy Nights.
Yeah, I don't think that's really a hot take for anything
right now.
out
Most films are better than 8 Crazy Nights.
Yes, but also one of them is directed by the man that created Samurai Jack.
Yeah, so that maybe had something to do with it.
Yeah, just a heads up for where we're gonna take that eventual discussion.
Yeah.
But before we move on, let's see. We got some Rob Schneider action in here. Everyone's favorite.
Yeah, Rob Schneider as the narrator, which is an interesting choice.
And Mr. Chang, a Chinese restaurant manager.
Yeah, possibly the single most racist character to appear in an animated film. And that includes Solomon.
I was going to say. It's up there.
It might be worse than like the Indians in Peter Pan. Like it's pretty bad.
That's a tie. That's like a 3-way tie right there. And those are all from very different like cultural eras.
Yeah, and I guess here's the one thing I will say to compare another one. At least the crows in Dumbo are kind of fun.
Oh my god.
At least they do something, and they sing a nice song. But do you know one of the crows' name is Jim Crow?
Wow. Should I rewatch Dumbo?
You know what? Dumbo's like a good movie. It's just horribly racist.
Oh, okay.
That's not even the most racist thing in the movie. There's a part, and I'm surprised no one talks about it, where there's a part where the workers are setting up the tents and stuff, and they're singing like a worker song, and it's very clearly meant to be like a black working song.
Oof.
And I might be misremembering it, so don't quote me, but I kind of remember last time watching it, they kind of say like, plantation working wasn't so bad. Like, there's like a line like that in the song.
Well, yeah, we don't have time to unpack all that. But
here's the thing, if you did a live action Dumbo, you could do like a really interesting thing about like how minstrelsy is like tied to like racist stereotypes and like clowns and circuses, and how like circuses kind of exploit downtrodden people and make fun of stereotypes, something, racial stereotypes, but also physical stereotypes like big ears. Like, you could make a really insightful commentary on those things, unless your movie's directed by Tim Burton.
Yeah, but Danny DeVito and Michael Keaton rematch.
Hey, you know what? Danny DeVito did wear a big hat in that film.
I still haven't seen it because I've skipped out in the last like 5 remakes or reimaginings or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was the thing that almost got me. I was like, it's a Batman Returns rematch. You know
what? I will say Dumbo like does occupy like a weird place in my heart. For some reason, the teaser for Tim Burton's Dumbo like really got to me.
Oh, really?
Like, it really got to me. But I was also like, it's Tim Burton's Dumbo. This is going to be bad. Like, I still knew enough not to see it. But I every now and then I will just watch that trailer because I'm like, wow, I wish this was attached to a better movie.
Isn't that funny how that happens sometimes? Where it's like, that really goes to show, like, yeah, it's all marketing, but like, making trailers is almost like an art form in itself.
Yes.
But you can like evoke real emotions through like the hype machine, almost. Not even a hype machine, just like get people excited to see something like that could be really special and moving. And then it's directed by Tim Burton in 2019.
If I remember correctly, the new Dumbo, from what I read, it like takes some like, it's trying to be like the Walt Disney Company being like, yeah, we understand the Walt Disney Company sucks, like making fun of themselves.
Oh yeah, I heard about that, right? And Michael Keaton's like a steampunk Walt Disney or something.
Yeah, which is like the wrong take for a fucking Dumbo movie.
Yeah.
Also, I was just annoyed that there's like, it's one of those Disney remakes where there's no talking mouse, or like they were just like, fuck, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna have any fun.
Yeah, I'm fucking just movie. Like shaking and crying at the thought of a live action Lilo and Stitch, which is apparently gonna happen.
Oh yeah, which no one wants.
No,
but it'll probably make $800 million.
Yeah, if you go to see that movie, you're dead to me. Hold me to this.
Yeah, like unless like they do something radically different with it.
If it's fucking directed by like Guillermo del Toro, then sure.
If it's directed, it's directed by Guillermo del Toro, and it's not a remake of Lilo and Stitch. It's like, hey, what happens when Lilo grows up? So it's kind of like a sequel film, but we're going to do it live action. Because that would make a little more sense. Like, the childlike wonder's kind of gone away a little bit. And maybe you just tell an original story. I would maybe see that. I don't want to see a one-to-one remake of Lilo and Stitch.
You know, that's actually a pretty good idea. I don't want any version of a live-action Lilo and Stitch, but if they had to do it, that's not the worst way to do it.
Well, here's the thing. Not to make this about the Walt Disney remakes, but I think every Disney film has, like, some meat to it where it's like, if you wanted to tap into it in some capacity, you could totally, like, just tell a different version of this story, or, like, I think Maleficent's the right idea, where it's like, tell a version of this story from the perspective of the villain, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's what you do. Say what you will about fucking Cruella, but I like that as opposed to just doing 101 Dalmatians again, which the only reason they didn't do it is because they already did a live-action remake of 101 Dalmatians. But, like, you could take these stories and just tell an original story, or, like, sequelize it, or do something different, especially the early Disney stuff. And it feels like at some point they were just like, nope, we're just going to do the movies again. And I think it's like Beauty and the Beast was kind of the one that made them want to do that.
Yeah, because it made more money than God.
Yeah. I think a really good idea would be for Disney. Does Disney own The New World by Terrence Malick now? Was that a 20th Century Fox?
Oh, God, I don't... Let me check.
I 'cause, 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 'c
No, it's owned by New Line. So that's like a Warner Brothers subsidiary.
Because I was saying what they should have done was just re-release that and just call it Pocahontas.
That would have been so fucking funny.
That's like, hey, here's our Pocahontas remake.
Yeah, it could finally make its money back.
Yeah, hey.
Because it's also a really good fucking movie.
Mm-hmm. Or like, and then you get the Disney stuff like Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is like a deeply flawed film, but has like a lot of good stuff in it. Mm-hmm. And you could totally remake it in a way that made it a good film. And what they're going to probably do is like get Josh Gad as Quasimodo. Like, it would just be terrible. And like, that's one of those ones where it's like you got to cut the gargoyle statues. Like, that's like a terrible thing in the movie, and you know that they're just gonna like get 3 comedians and have them be the gargoyles. And,
James
or you know
James
what, we're finally
gargoyle.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we're also finally at an age where you could make a live action Fantasia. And I'm not saying like remake Fantasia live action. I'm saying pick classical music and just make like 7 short films set to classical music in live action.
Oh, totally.
Just call it like
fucking
Fantasia Live, you know?
Well, Fantasia Live would be awesome. But see, my thing is that the new Fantasia, because at some point Fantasia 3000 or whatever is going to happen, right? You got to do each song with a different medium. You could totally do it. So one would be live action.
I would agree with that.
One would be 2D, one would be 3D, one would be CG. You know, just fucking mix and match. One of them should be like fucking rotoscope for all I care.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just think that in this age of digital filmmaking, we could totally get away with like top to bottom live action Fantasia with just amazing visuals.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like to just show off what we could do if we ever let filmmakers make what they want.
Yeah, if they ever let people make movies again in this country, that's what they should do.
So yeah, and that's Rob Schneider, Mr. Chang. Kevin Nealon's the mayor. Who, and also the weird thing is Rob Schneider plays the racist stereotype, but everyone else just kind of looks like who they are. And then we get John Lovitz, who is the recipient of the patch, as opposed to Whitey. And a weird choice, he's got a hook for a hand. Which also to me is like, you know, maybe he does kind of deserve the pet. Like, maybe it's like, oh, this is a guy, you know, he lost his hand at a young age. But through adversity, he like did good for the community, right? Mm-hmm. So like maybe he does deserve the patch. I don't know. It's weird that like he's the guy where it's like, oh, they gave it to this asshole instead of Whitey.
Like, you know, it'd be kind of interesting if it was like Whitey then has to realize like, oh, the thing he wants, like, he doesn't actually need it right now. Someone else needs it more than he does. And then like they uplift each other that way. Like, that would be a really nice wholesome message for the holidays. But it did not happen here.
Mm-hmm.
So
also some brief cameos. We got the Sprouse twins.
Oh, that's right.
Are the KB Toy soldiers. Blake Clark, who appeared as Farmer Fran in The Waterboy, is the Radio Shack walkie-talkie. Peter Dante, who's appeared in a bunch of these, is the Foot Locker referee. These are all logos.
Yes.
The Rappin' Granny is the See's Candy box. Kevin Farley, Chris Farley's brother, is the Panda Express panda. They keep trying to make Kevin Farley happen, and it just hasn't happened. And Carl Weathers.
Wait, you forgot the big ones. Tom Kenny, SpongeBob, is a sharper image chair.
Yeah, but I was trying to focus on...
the Sandler regulars. You're right.
Yeah, the Sandler regulars. So, Tom Kenny's in this. He should have just voiced someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tyra Banks is also in there, since we're wrapping up.
Also in the song where it's about Davey opening up finally and accepting the death of his parents and then letting himself, you know... Again, another statement about, like, toxic masculinity, where sometimes men are kind of forced to repress their emotions, and it can be really damaging because, you know, all people have emotions, and it's okay to cry about your dead fucking family. And there's also boob jokes in the song, even though the dress like doesn't have boobs, it's just a dress. Bad movie. All the townspeople show up at the mall later, and they give all the patches to Whitey, and then he has a seizure, and we don't know if he lives or dies, and no one cares.
He could have died right there. That could have been it.
Yeah, that could have been it. I mean, you know what? Fuck him. Whitey didn't really learn anything, because what he really should have learned was that this town doesn't deserve his trust or love or joy.
And there you go. That's the sequel. Whitey leaves to go be a good person where it's going to be appreciated, and everyone else is like, wait, there's no more good people in this town.
Can we talk about how, like, the song where people kind of realize they were mean to Whitey, it still makes fun of Whitey?
Yeah, it's so awful.
Also, the people, they don't do things where it's like, oh, Whitey, like, helped us out, and then we didn't really. Like, that's when you're, you know, it's one of these things where it's like, oh, Whitey, you know, I had a flat tire, he stopped by, he fixed it, and I said thanks, but I didn't really do anything to repay him, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I kind of just took his kindness for granted. But instead it's like, oh, Whitey came over because we couldn't watch the fucking football game, and he helped us get a signal, and then he got struck by lightning, and we didn't care. It's like, that's not, like, being inconsiderate. That's being, like, a monster.
Just being a psychopath.
Yeah, yeah, this town, like, deserves to die.
Have you seen... I'm not going to spoil this movie for any listeners that haven't seen it, just in case you haven't either, Matt, but have you seen Werewolves Within?
No, I saw you post a review of it, though.
Yeah, it's a cute, solid... It was made for, like, $5 million. Thumbs up. Go check it out if you want something to prepare you for spooky season. Or the holiday season, because it's, you know, snow-based. But there's a lot of stuff with the townspeople in that. And I'm sure it's just because of me watching it in such close proximity to 8 Crazy Nights that they correlated to each other in my mind. But, like, the townsfolk in both movies are not, like, the greatest, except Werewolves Within, I think, does it properly, where it's like, oh yeah, there's, like, people hiding, like, beef with one another. There's, like, certain grudges they're holding, and, like, this is gonna reach a boiling point. But in 8 Crazy Nights, it's just, like, a really cynical, no, that's just the way things are. They're just all awful. But the movie doesn't acknowledge their awfulness. They just happen to be that.
Yeah, it's like, you can be awful, but as long as you say thank you at the end, like, it all balances out. Which is a terrible lesson.
Reminds me of, like, I mean, The Color Purple is a significantly better film than that. But we both kind of walked away with, like, there are certain things not addressed in that film where it's just like, yeah, you know, you just get over it. And you get older. And it's like, that's a weird way to end some of the stories in that film. And it's a weird way to end the story in this film.
Yes. Bad movie.
Bad movie.
Don't watch it.
Yeah.
No stars.
Kinda, yeah. I hope everyone who did good animation found a better place afterwards.
They didn't. 2D animation died 3 years later.
Well, the Goonies
Goonies
never die, though.
Goonies never say die. That's what I say to all you animators out there who are unemployed. Goonies never say die.
Aww.
All the people recently laid off by Quibi, and they played the Trolls song about getting back up.
Oh, that was... Jesus. Like, if that's not, like, proof that we're in dystopia...
That the ruling class might be a little out of touch.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jeffrey Katzenberg, for
thanks for just being a perfect
piece
metaphor
of shit on the planet.
Yeah.
No, he's not even that funny. He's just a piece of shit.
But the problem putting that out there is now you can't work in Hollywood until he dies.
Yeah, I might cut around that.
We've talked shit about Jeffrey Katzenberg already, so
yeah, there's no hope for me.
And it's unavoidable when we get to later Spielberg.
I'll just go make movies in Europe with the French.
With everyone's favorite guy, Woody Allen.
Nope, never mind. See, that's the fucking problem. In America, we're all, like, repressed sexually, and then in Europe, everyone's a pervert. There's no hope.
There really is no hope.
That's all getting cut, so
yeah.
I don't get murdered.
Everyone in Europe is a pervert.
It's a hell of a soundbite.
I was watching, if you want to talk about Adam Sandler's target audience, I was watching a video. I think it was Penn and Teller were, like, doing, like, a social experiment where they were trying to see how many people would agree to supporting a, like, bill that said America's the greatest country on earth. like it was just like seeing how many people would support blind patriotism.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked one of the women, so like, if America's the best country, what would you say is the second best country? And she went, Europe. So,
can you believe they keep taking money away from the education budget in this country?
Hey, I wonder if that's about something.
Yeah. Although we just gave $1 billion to Israel for the Iron Dome.
For Iron Man?
The Iron Dome.
Well, we have to support Iron Man against the Ironmonger or whatever the fuck. I don't remember what the villain's name in Iron Man 1 was.
The dude.
Was it... Yeah, but was it Ironmonger? What was his name?
Well, he doesn't have a name in the movie. It's just fucking... Oh my god.
But it still says in the credits, like, Ironmonger.
Obadiah Stane.
Obadiah Stane.
Yeah, but he's not called Ironmonger.
Obadiah Stane. Ironmonger.
Oh, you know what?
Right.
No, he goes, "We're Ironmongers, Tony."
Does he say that?
Yeah, he says that like in the middle of the film when he's trying to convince him not to sell like the weapons division or whatever.
Talk about a casually great performance that is like totally wasted.
Yeah, I mean, he was supposed to like stick around in those movies too.
Yeah,
But
whatever.
Yeah.
Obadiah Stane.
Yeah. There's good stuff in that first movie still, I think.
Yeah, I don't need to watch it ever again though. The Goonies. Let's talk about the fucking Goonies.
Yeah, directed by the late great Richard Donner, this is really my excuse to talk about Richard Donner. When did you first watch the Goonies, Matt? Let's get into it from a nostalgic point of view.
I came a little late to the Goonies, where I was normally the kid introducing kids to movies, you know? And a friend of mine named Ben Poole, I guess either referenced it or like something, and I was like, what is that? And it's like, oh, you've never seen the Goonies? And I was like, no. And I think we were on like some trip together, so we had like one of those like portable DVD players. And so we watched the Goonies in like the backseat of this car. And I thought it was one of the greatest films I had ever seen up to that point. I thought, this is amazing. This movie's so fucking funny. This movie's so good. I think I was like 8 or 9. And on rewatch, it has never lived up to that first experience. But I had a good time in that moment. Very strange film. But yeah, it's whatever it is.
So you wouldn't say it's one of your favorites?
No.
Okay.
People seem really nostalgic for the Goonies.
Oh, people are very
like,
nostalgic about the Goonies. People are
there's a lot of
very,
people who,
very
like,
nostalgic about the Goonies.
People are like, this is my fucking movie. And it definitely isn't that.
It is not mine either.
Was this the movie that just kids watch if they weren't allowed to watch Indiana Jones?
I think so.
Like, I think that would probably do it.
And, you know, like, this is basically the unofficial, like, thesis of the Retrospective series, like, any of them, is that, yeah, stuff might not hold up the same way from when you were younger, but you could approach it from a more interesting angle as you get older, too, you know, whether or not it's holds up. And I think this allows me to talk about Richard Donner, so I'm going to give it a thumbs up, but I don't particularly care for the Goonies. I think it's a fine children's adventure film. I get the Spielberg like fun vibes, or at least the attempt of that. Chris Columbus is I'm losing respect for him the more and more we talk about him in these retrospectives. And the cast is great. But mostly I'm here to talk about Richard Donner. I'll take or leave the Goonies. I'm not trying to be someone who tilts their nose up at this movie. I hate that shit.
Yeah, it's not like awful.
Yeah.
But it's not one where I'm like, you know, like you can go to Back to the Future and be like, Back to the Future is kind of like a perfect screenplay, you know?
Yeah.
If you want to understand structure, especially like a science fiction, fantasy, adventure film, like watch Back to the Future. You don't get much better than that. The Goonies, it's like, well, the screenplay's not that great. The characters aren't that developed. And anything that's in it you can find done better in other films.
Yeah, and
but for what it is, it's okay.
Yeah, especially when it comes to Richard Donner. You know, we were talking about it before the show, but it's worth bringing up now because I'm a big Richard Donner fan. Even if he doesn't have like a staple of his directing, you know? He's got some duds, he's got some bangers, and he's got a lot of stuff in the middle. But the stuff that really works for me from his filmography really works for me. Like, I still love all the Lethal Weapons, although 3 is kind of, I could take or leave 3. I don't know what it is about that one when I also like part 4, but...
You know, I have never... I've rewatched Lethal Weapon 1 and 2 a lot in the past year for some reason, and I can't really bring myself to do 3 or 4.
4 is just very hokey and sincere, and I think the sincerity saves me.
I remember 3 being really terrible, so, like, I really don't want to watch that. And then I was thinking maybe I'll just watch 4, and I did start it one night, and it started with, like, the guy in, like, an Iron Man suit, like, burning things. And I was kind of like, I'm good. This isn't really what I watch Lethal Weapon for. Yeah. And, but it's weird to think that this is, this is a real journeyman director type thing, because it's like this guy did The Omen, the first Superman movie, The Goonies, Lady Hawk, all the Lethal Weapon films, Scrooge, and, like, 16 Blocks. Those are all, like, incredibly different movies. Mm-hmm. There isn't, like, really any connective tissue between any of them.
I'm sure you want to talk about this if we ever do a Superman retrospective, but what are your opinions on the Donner cut of Superman 2?
I think it's interesting. I don't think it's, like, great, because it's one of those weird things where it's, like, part of it is cobbled together from, like, screen tests, you know?
Yeah.
They actually didn't shoot a lot of it. And I feel like there's a better version that just kind of uses some of the Richard Lester stuff. But it's interesting, and I kind of wish I could at least see the original intent of Superman being like this 2-part roadshow that was going to go around. I think that would have maybe been it would have made the first Superman like a less complete movie, but I think it would have been at least interesting.
Yeah.
Because that thing where, like, Superman's supposed to turn the planet back at the end of 2, and that's why Lois Lane doesn't remember who he is. And instead they had to do, like, the weird contrived, when he kisses her, she forgets things, like, which is weird. But, yeah, it's more just interesting than a fully complete movie.
Yeah, I don't like it as much as the first one either, but that first one kind of gets more special over time.
Yeah, the first one's like, wow. I'm surprised this movie is this good when you consider, like, how cynically it was kind of thrown together. It's like, just some crazy Italians trying to make a fucking movie. Yeah.
And I mean, like, looking back, like, at that era of film in 1978, it's like, who would you pick to direct Superman? It's like, oh, Steven Spielberg.
Spielberg says no.
Yeah, then that happens, and, like, I wouldn't have picked Richard Donner. Like, looking back at, like, what I understand now,
Well, before you go to the obvious choice, then you go to Sam Peckinpah, of course. and then you only fire him because he pulls a gun on one of the producers. And then you get Richard Donner. So,
and he was a director who just had, like, a lot of flexibility, and that's pretty cool. The mark of a great director isn't always, like, your visual staples. Some of them do have that, and then others have something like Donner had. And
yeah, I think the only thing with Donner that, like, makes him hard to classify is, like, there are other journeyman directors, and you can be like, well, you get him for this reason. Like, you get him because he can make X Factor work really well. Which means maybe he's not good at doing, like, a really introspective character piece, but maybe he's good at doing, like, an action movie, right? Mm-hmm. But I can't really pin down what Richard Donner had that, like, made him unique in any real capacity. But I would like to I want to rewatch. I haven't seen, like, Lady Hawk in forever. I remember really liking it, but I don't remember it at this point.
Yeah, I brought it up before on the show, but I really like 16 Blocks. I know he wanted to do one more movie after that for a long time. The talk of Lethal Weapon 5, as recent as fucking last year, 2020, the producer was like, it's going to happen.
I believe we talked about it on an episode that we released the week he fucking died. Like, I think
I think so too. That's very...
oh boy. I think that's how long he was trying to at least do another one.
Yeah.
And then you sent me he did an interview with Nolan that's, like, really great.
Yeah, I'll if there's a full link to it up, because it comes and goes because it's a special feature from the Dark Knight trilogy. I'll put a link to at least the small clip of it in the YouTube version of this, where Nolan and Donner just talk about, like, what inspired them in their origin approaches for the big two superheroes, And I just think it's a little funny that it's like, well, Burton did it first, but no one really remembers it for that.
I think the best thing and worst thing you can say about the Burton Batmans is they're kind of Tim Burton movies and not Batman movies.
Yeah, you know? And like as we've talked about them, I've definitely come to appreciate them for that significantly more. Yeah. And that's fine. I don't need movies to adhere to what I want all the time.
Hey, you know what the worst thing about the fucking Goonies is?
That we're already off topic about it?
That, but also that it clearly was one of the big inspirations for fucking Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, the fucking stupid-ass knife shit?
Yes.
Stupid fucking movie. This is... yeah. I try not to get too heated on this podcast, because it's just movies, who gives a shit? But yeah.
That thing is like, where it's like, I'll say this, like, Goonies, fun movie, it's fine, it's good for kids. Don't fucking try and make another Goonies movie. Don't try and make your version of the Goonies. I don't want to see it.
I think you can make children adventure films, but I get what you're saying completely.
Children adventure films are great, especially when they have to fight a killer clown. But they're not like, don't do this version of it, because there's not a lot here. It's like, oh, let's go find a treasure with kids, you know? It's like, it puts you in the mind of like, oh, we're going to go out. It's like playing outside with your friends, right? It captures that emotion. That's totally fine. But it should not be a goal you're aiming for, in my opinion.
You know what? I think, to bring it back to Richard Donner a little bit too, I think he's generally really good with set pieces. And I think the set pieces in the Goonies are like, they're not outstanding. They're not like, here's what you go to the Goonies for or anything, but yeah, I think they're solid. They're fun. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, she can play the piano. Like, the trap doesn't really make any sense when you think about it, but it's like, oh, okay, she can do that. It's also like, this movie has that weird, like, it's like right in the middle of the 80s, and this is one of those movies that's held up as like, man, they wouldn't make this shit for kids anymore, where they got to deal with like a dead body, and the Fratellis are after them. And it starts with like an escape from prison, man. You know, like how people from that like worship the 80s are like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, you probably could get away with it if you wrote a good movie. Also, like, Stranger Things is like super popular with kids. It's like, yeah, you know.
Yeah, I think people that worship the 80s are also the ones that don't understand that we never left the 80s.
Yeah, but also don't understand like what was actually good in the 80s.
Yeah.
And part of it is that, yeah, this movie's not great, but like it's a little, it's unique in its own way, and you know, I don't know, I think it could be seen as like a fun staple of 80s nostalgia, like on its own merits. I think this is where I definitely have had trouble with looking back at stuff from the 80s lately. On its own merits, I think it's a fun little slice of adventurous nostalgia. The connotations about it being like this unimpeachable thing from the 80s are what really frustrate me about this movie and a lot of other movies. And it tends not to even be these movies' faults. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I don't even think the Goonies is trying to position itself as a classic in that capacity.
Yeah,
you know?
like, again, like, we're talking about Richard Donner, and he just, like, he would go make a solid film to the best of his abilities. You know, work sometimes, didn't work other times. Whatever. Fucking, you don't need to get defensive about everything from then.
And it's just a thing of like, oh, you know, it's a fun movie for kids. Like, it's almost like, it's honestly a little closer to like a Disney Channel original movie.
Yes, you know? There you go. That's exactly it. This is totally people's Halloween Town.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're not great, but like, you know, they serve their purpose, and they're kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. It's no Spy Kids, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. No, Spy Kids is brilliant.
Yeah, no, Spy Kids is genuinely great.
We could be the assholes to, like, in 20 years from now, we're like, they don't make movies like Spy Kids anymore. And then, like, you know, you show someone our age in the future that, and they're like, I don't get it.
You see the people made of thumbs, and they're just like, okay, Grandpa, time for bed.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know. It's weird to talk about Goonies because, again, it's kind of like Rise of Skywalker, where it's just like, we got to go to the thing to do the thing to stop the thing before the other thing, you know?
Yeah, you know, and if you're going to make, like, a decent kids' adventure movie, like, you could do a whole lot worse than the Goonies. But I don't know, like, I see people say, like, oh, these are such iconic characters, and maybe I just missed the boat in it, because when I saw it, I was not a child. Mm-hmm. I was older, and I just don't get the impression that they're very memorable.
I did see it as a child, and it just, I don't know, it just, rewatching it just doesn't do much. I just, as I got older, I'm like, oh, I don't really need to, like, Goonies isn't one where I'm going to be like, no, you got to see this shit.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you know what? I'm talking shit about the characters. I like Sloth.
Sloth's fun.
I just like characters that are outside the norm. You know, like, here's the thing. Even like a piece of shit movie like Bright, the orc cop who gets picked on, I was like, oh, I like him. He's an underdog. Yeah. Like, I got a soft spot for characters like that. Even in a huge astronomical piece of shit like that movie. So
yeah,
I don't know what that says about me. But you know,
I get it. You know what, I like Chunk. I think Chunk's funny. Okay. I gotta be honest. Not in the like, haha, it's funny because he's the fucking fat one, which is like unfortunately a big 80s thing.
Yeah.
But I like his, like, that he's got like this reputation all over town of being a liar. Like, where it's like, hey kid, isn't this like that time you said you knew Michael Jackson and shit like that, you know?
Yeah.
Or like he's just repeating plots from movies he's seen, like to call when he calls the cops and he's like, no, I'm trying to report an actual dead body I found and no one believes him. Like, that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And I do like that he's kind of on his own adventure for a lot of it, where he gets like kidnapped by the Fratellis and stuff, and they're like pointing guns in his face. And I do like when it's like, kid confessed to everything, and he just confesses to everything bad he's ever done in his life. Like, I find that funny. Mm-hmm. Joey Pants is in this.
Yeah. Oh, the cast is here. You go. I don't think the characters are that memorable, but I think the cast is obviously very memorable because it's filled with people that would go on to have huge careers.
Yeah,
at least a handful of them did. Robert fucking Davi's in this.
Yes, that's a weird one. That like I remembered like that character. I'm like, holy shit, it's Robert Davi. I forgot it was him. And got to give a shout out to Anne Ramsey, who is just fantastic as Mama Fratelli, who is in maybe because what should have been an Academy Award winning performance in the film Throw Mama from the Train. Owen, I think about that all the fucking time. So, I know your son Owen. He's a nice boy. No, he's not. He's fat and he's stupid. She was fantastic, and she only passed away like 4 years after this came out.
Aww.
Yeah, but terrific, and just had like that mean face and a mean voice, which I believe part of that was that she had like throat cancer or something. So like the surgeries kind of gave her that voice. She uses it to great effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And of course, the other big, who would become eventual heavy hitters, are like Sean Astin, Josh Brolin, Corey Feldman, who's unfortunately gone through his troubles from circumstances outside of his control.
Well, it's weird where Corey Feldman was like the biggest actor of the group at the time.
Yeah.
And now it's like, life's horrible.
Yeah. A lot of unfortunately sad stuff about that. Mm-hmm. But I also want to shout out Jonathan Key Kwan, of course. He was definitely my favorite just because of like when I was younger I had that attachment from not Raiders, Temple of Doom.
Yeah, short rounds back.
Yeah.
It's a fine film.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, everyone's seen the Goonies by this point, I feel like.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to say about it other than it's fine. If you haven't seen it and you're in your 20s, like, maybe check it out, but I can't guarantee you'll, like, love it.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the ending a lot.
I like that things get, like, progressively cartoonier the deeper they go into the tunnel. Mm-hmm. And then they're basically on, like, a Pirates of the Caribbean pirate ship by the end.
Yeah. And see, like, that's the fun stuff in this movie, you know?
Yeah. I do like that the villain is like this country club that is gonna take over the Goondocks. Like,
Yeah. I mean, there's like an almost working class angle at that, or no, a straight up working class angle because they're trying to save the.
It
area.
would be funnier though if it's like, look, we got all this gold from the pirate ship. We can save the town. And his parents are like, fuck that. We're moving out of this shithole. Like, which feels like that would probably happen.
Yeah.
Can we talk about all the maniacs that like thought we were gonna get a sequel to this movie for years?
Oh, the maniacs include Sean Astin, Josh Brolin.
Well, look, they're in the movie, fine, whatever. But I'm talking about like who wants to see the Goonies grown up?
It's like the same people that remade Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I guess you're right. I mean,
yeah. Like we criticize like this 80s nostalgia that makes people like blind a lot, but it's like a real problem still. I think. And it's just I don't know what you would even do for a Goonies 2 that wouldn't make me like just shy away from it and be like, no thank you. Don't need to see that.
Yeah.
Like if you want a sequel to the Goonies, I think you need to grow up. Is that hard to say? Is that mean?
Maybe. I don't know, because like I said, like maybe you really do have an attachment to it. I don't know. I just don't understand, like, there was maybe a window in, like, the early 2000s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you could do a movie about, I don't know, everyone growing up, right? But they held on to it for, like... They held on to it forever. Like it was talked about until very recently that they were going to do another one.
Mm-hmm. Richard Donner, as recently as like 2010, was like, the Goonies sequel is a definite thing. Mm. It will happen.
Spielberg even said something like not too long ago, like where he's like, yeah, we're still talking about it, but we don't know. And I think there was a pilot shot recently. I think I remember reading that. And then it was like, Fox was like, no.
Mm. What is it with Richard Donner movies getting like TV adaptations?
I don't know.
Everyone just... That's why I think like I wouldn't hold him up as one of my favorite filmmakers, but I think maybe he was one of like the great American filmmakers. We just didn't really realize it because everyone wants what he achieved like casually.
Yeah. Well, I think a big thing is that Goonies and Lethal Weapon are two of, like, the 80s franchises that never really got a remake or sequel in theaters, Like, it just didn't really happen.
Did you say Lethal Weapon?
Yeah. Well, but they got a TV show later.
They got 3 sequels on Lethal Weapon.
No, I'm saying, like, as a franchise.
Oh, okay. Like reimagining.
No, like what I mean, like, either like where they remade it in the 2000s or they did like the everyone's old now.
Oh, right, yeah.
Like they never did either one. So part of that is because Mel Gibson went off the fucking rails, but like, and then they did the TV show, which I don't think anyone really gave a shit about.
No, I heard it was actually like fine for network TV, so that means it
was one of those ones though where like
fine.
It ended up being it was like a nightmare behind the scenes. Like, there was, like, all these, like, cast tensions. Because didn't they fire the one guy?
Yeah, they fired their Riggs because apparently that guy's a huge asshole.
Yeah. And then, the stories you hear about is that, like, kind of everyone was terrible on it.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a lot to get into there, but yeah, it seems very tense.
Do you know about the Goonies 2 video game?
No, but you know what? So if it had to exist, that's probably the way to do it.
Yeah, well, here's something weird. It's not like there was... Cause remember when they made that Back to the Future game a few years back, and it was kind of like the unofficial Back to the Future 4?
Oh, yeah.
And, and it was like, cute, and it was like this nice little thing. That's not what happened with the Goonies. The Goonies 2 was made in 1987, 2 years after the movie. Yeah, it's this weird thing where... Konami, I believe, made a Goonies video game, right? Because everyone made tie-in video games for the Nintendo Entertainment System and other consoles. But it was only ever released in Japan. They never released it in the United States. But it was popular enough that it got a sequel, so they made a Goonies 2, that told an original story, and it was released in the United States. So if you live in the United States, you can only get Goonies 2 on NES.
Wow.
And it's a completely original story about the Fratellis broke out of prison. They've kidnapped all the other Goonies save Mikey, I believe, and you have to rescue them. That's kind of the video game plot. But they also have a mermaid that they have captured. So it's about freeing your friends and the mermaid.
What? Huh.
Which, you know what? Solid plot for a Goonies sequel.
Yeah. That's the first time I've ever been convinced that, like, you know what, I'd see that.
Yeah.
In whatever form, video game form that would have taken, I'd check that out.
Although the weird thing is, like, I've looked up, like, you can look it up and read the plot where it's like, oh, you got to rescue your friend Annie, who's a mermaid, who's introduced in this story. But you play the game, it doesn't really explain that until the very end. She's a mermaid.
Oh, she just happens to be. Okay, that's weird.
Yeah. And she is on the box cover as a mermaid, but, like, I can't find, like, instructions for it anywhere, like, as a PDF. I was like, did the instructions at least explain that she's a mermaid? It's such a weird detail. And, yeah, I think a good one. Honestly, like, yeah, I would probably see a Goonies sequel if it was about rescuing a mermaid.
Yeah, fuck it. Just get weirder with it.
Yeah,
more fantasy elements. Evolution.
And also doesn't get, like, too crazy,
mm-hmm.
you know? Like, I feel like there's a version of it where it's like, oh, no, like, we gotta go on a pirate time travel adventure that would be, like, terrible.
Or the Goonies in space.
Yeah, but, like, Goonies, oh, it turns out there's a mermaid living under the Goondocks. Like, that's a pretty fun idea.
Yeah.
And I guess this game is, like, highly regarded by people who like that era of video games. I've never played it, but interesting little tidbit right there. So if you want your fucking Goonies sequel, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, if it got me interested, I'm just assuming the Goonies heads, as I'll call them, are, like, frothing at the mouth right now.
You know what? I'm willing to bet I would honestly just see any kid adventure film where they rescue a mermaid. That seems like a fun kid plot.
Yeah. You know what? More family kid adventure films with mermaids.
There you go. We solved the problem.
Yeah. And that's
Or
why
Killer
Pirates of the
Clowns.
Caribbean 4 is a masterpiece.
You know what? I remember liking that one.
Really?
Unfortunately. I have not seen it since it was in theaters.
Oh,
though.
let me make it clear to the listeners, that was 100% a joke for me. That's the first movie I fell asleep during.
I remember that one, though, having a plot where it was like a kind of a Goonies plot. Put a thing on a thing to do a thing,
Yeah.
you know? Like, and then I just remember the only interesting part of it was that like the Spanish are after him in the background because they want to get to the Fountain of Youth or some bullshit.
Yeah, there's like 5 different groups going for the Fountain of Youth, and it's like, yeah, for a movie like that, it sounds kind of fun. And you watch it.
Once the Spanish get there, and then the twist is that they're going to destroy the Fountain of Youth because it's anti-Christian. And I remember being like, oh, that's actually kind of fun. And that's about it. Also, Blackbeard's in it, right?
Yeah, Ian McShane, like, that's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
Even the last 2 Pirates of the Caribbean movies have, like, individual things. It's like, okay, that's fucking awesome. And then you watch the movies and it's like, ooh.
Pirates are fun. I hope whatever they're cooking up with the Margot Robbie one is good.
Yeah, me too.
She's been really smart with her movie choices, so, like, it gives me hope.
Mm-hmm.
Goonies. Oh, yeah, we talked about this because Spielberg wrote the story and kind of co-directed it. I don't think we ever explained that.
Oh, yeah. No.
And Chris Columbus wrote the screenplay, and he sucks, but hey.
Hey, I don't think he's doing Gremlins 3 anymore, so.
Thank Christ. Please, for the love of God, don't let him do any more of the Christmas Chronicle movies.
Oh, yeah, please.
He just killed what could have been this generation's Goonies.
Yeah, that first one's still just, like, such a fun surprise.
Holy shit, he wrote Christmas with the Cranks.
Whoa, it's all connected.
All the bad things are connected.
The Chris Columbus extended universe.
Yeah. Thank God we will never do a Chris Columbus retrospective.
You don't want to go over such classics as
Heartbreak Hotel.
The Bicentennial
Mrs.
Man. I was trying to find a deep cut, but I haven't seen most of them. Actually, no.
I Love You,
that's
Beth
not true.
Cooper. Remember I Love You, Beth Cooper?
I'm trying to ignore that one because I did.
I can't believe we were still making are we still making movies? I feel like it might finally be over, but it feels like it held on for a long time, where it was really greasy-looking nerdy guy falls in love with a hot lady and wins her love.
Well, that's the universal high school experience.
Yeah.
I saw that film in theaters.
Oh, really? You did?
Yeah. Not my proudest moment.
Well,
not worth watching.
We all see movies like that, I guess.
When you're in high school, you'll see fucking anything.
Yeah. Try to talk your friends into going to see Michael Clayton. And they're just like, no.
That was an HBO viewing for me, and I was like, holy fuck, this is great. You know?
Yeah.
Whereas my theatrical viewings were like The Hangover and Transformers 2.
Yeah. The worst was, though, like, because I have no personality outside of movies, every year when it was, like, my birthday, it would kind of be like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, well, I'll go see a movie. And unfortunately, there were some years where there was just nothing good playing, but I felt obligated to go see a movie. And I saw some pretty bad movies on my birthday.
Venom 2 almost came out on my birthday this year, and I was like,
hey.
Oh, fuck yeah. Because I actually want to see what fucking weird shit Andy Serkis and Tom Hardy cooked up. I don't care about Venom, but they're weird enough to get me into the theater, and it's only 90 minutes. So I was like, okay, yeah, I could do that.
Well, that's a great sign.
Yeah. But that didn't happen.
That Venom 2 trailer is, like, really good.
You think so?
I really think so.
Okay.
That's a really good trailer for a goofy monster movie, which is what Venom is.
Yeah.
It's not a superhero film, it's a goofy monster movie.
Yeah, which is like the right approach for a weird Spider-Man unofficial spin-off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, don't try to make a real movie. Do that.
Like that's why I know I'm out of touch, because everyone responded really strongly to the new Spider-Man trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was in theaters and I saw the Venom trailer. I was like, to myself, I was like, oh, that's really good. And someone next to me was like, that looks like shit. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess.
Venom retrospective?
Hey, 2 movies.
No, I can't reclaim that first one.
Yeah, I only saw part of it.
No, nah, it's not good.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, like, wow, Tom Hardy does his job.
Yeah, well, it's fun to watch Tom Hardy lose his mind.
Yeah.
That's what it is. But there's a movie around that, unfortunately, which is not good. So.
Goonies.
Sure, check it out if you like nostalgia. Like, that's not even me being like flippant. Like, if you like that era of nostalgic films for young kids, check it out.
Uh-huh. And one that also acknowledges that a lot of people in the fucking 80s were living in fucking poverty.
Oh, yeah.
Goonies is one of the better ones.
Yeah, we don't really have, like, class-focused films in America right now. Unless they're, like, heady dramas. You notice that?
Yeah.
Wonder what that's about.
Yeah. The world's bad.
Yeah.
Well, Ethan's going to hate me because he gave this 5 stars on Letterboxd.
Oh, Ethan. Ethan.
But, which makes him the only person to give it really that high a score. One other person gave it 4 stars, but I'm not going to call them out.
No, there's a couple who gave it higher ratings that I follow.
Well, yeah, but you follow idiots.
Half of them gave it high star ratings. The other half gave it low star ratings. So
now I will say this: Goonies isn't one of those movies where if I see someone's giving it a high rating, I'm like, never gonna listen to their opinion again.
Yeah, like I don't.
But
I think we're both just like lukewarm on it, but we don't have any negative feelings really about it.
Yeah, no,
like all the stuff we talked about, we're just like, yeah, I like that, but I don't need to watch it again either.
Also, too fucking long. I gotta say that this is like a 90-minute movie and it's almost 2 hours.
Yeah, it's a little long. Yeah,
it's a little long for me because I always kind of like start losing it right as they're getting to the pirate ship.
You know, every movie needs to follow the footsteps of Venom: Let There Be Carnage and be under 90 minutes without credits.
Why not?
Yeah. Watch that be like the worst movie ever made. And I'm like,
I mean, it might. It could.
Yeah, it could be. I'm like,
well, because 90 minutes is also like a bad sign normally, because that means a studio cut that fucker down.
Mm-hmm.
But it could, if it was designed to be a 90-minute movie, then it could be a good movie.
Yeah.
Um.
Unlike the Goonies. No. Again, it's fine.
That's fine.
Go check it out or don't. Like it's better than like something like Ready Player One. If you're talking about like young adult adventure films.
I have to think about that, honestly.
Really? Okay.
I'm not saying they're like it's better, but it might be par for me.
Okay.
Like, yeah, because I didn't hate Ready Player One. Ready Player One gets really bad at the end, though. So, the movie, I should say, the book is bad.
The book is bad all the way through because that guy's a hack. Fun.
Hey,
Oh, I don't know if I'll keep this one in, but I don't know if you ever saw the young girl that's playing Kamala Khan in the MCU now. She has a Letterboxd account, and people found her, and I was like, oh, I wonder if she's going to keep posting, so I followed her. And I'm looking through my people I'm following review of the Goonies, and she gave it like 2.5 stars. Oh, no, she gave it 4.5 stars. I read someone else's. She gave it 4.5.
I was about to say that's a great sign. No. I'm about to say, well, okay.
No, but here's how I know, regardless of the quality of the film around her, whatever Miss Marvel's going to be, here's her 2-star review of Captain Marvel from 2019. These stars are not for Brie Larson. I will sacrifice my own life for Brie Larson. And that's Kamala Khan, so.
That's, yeah. Isn't there like a bunch of shit going on with that show, though?
Yeah, I think it's a disaster. Like a Thor the Dark World level production disaster.
Yeah.
Which they to their credit, they haven't had since Thor the Dark World.
So. Is that show going to be tied into the MCU?
Yeah, it's going to lead her in to the Captain Marvel sequel.
Yeah, the Marvel sequel is just called Marvels, right?
Yeah. Because they didn't like the lukewarm reaction critically the first one got, even though it's one of their better films.
Yeah, even though it's significantly better than another one I saw recently, but
Black Widow or Shang-Chi?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Black Widow was what a lot of people complained Captain Marvel was. So, whatever. Those movies don't matter enough.
No. Yeah, we don't have to get into that.
Yeah. I hope fucking Eternals is good.
Yeah. We'll see.
But everyone's gonna that one could be good though, and everyone's still gonna hate it.
Oh yeah.
That's just where we're at.
Goonies for the people that like Spirit Halloween stores. Just kidding. That's all of us. But like not a thumbs up, but like a sideways thumb. Like if you're interested, sure. Why not? But you've probably seen it. And
if you watched Rise of Skywalker and said, I want more of this, please stop watching movies, but before that, watch The Goonies.
I like how that's the one that just like keeps getting us.
Yeah, because it's I don't know. When we did that commentary, it like broke me.
Yeah.
Like I was filled with hatred. Also, there was a weird reevaluation wave coming for it, and I was so annoyed, but I think it died like before it could take form.
Matt, thank you for joining me today. I think that kind of taps us out for these two movies then,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not a great day for us, frankly.
One was extremely hateful, the other was okay.
Yeah.
Like
kind of yeah. We usually get more out of these, but not this time, I guess.
A bad sign of things to come for Sandler, I guess. Like, this is, you gotta hope that we get less like this, because fuck that movie.
Well, here, hang on. I'm not gonna respond to the individual films coming up, obviously, but let's take a look. Crazy Nights. Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Matt, where can the people find you?
I like how that could be anything we were looking at. Like, I'm at EmperorTM1 at twitter.com.
And you can find me at the Diego Crespo. Check out the Waffle Press on Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, and Patreon. Check out all the other retrospectives we've done so far. Maybe get some early looks at some other stuff we got going on. Send us prayers or good well wishes. You know what? No, not all of these are the worst thing that's ever happened to me. So.
Oh, okay.
So we'll probably be okay. But yeah, go like and subscribe. And if you didn't like this, like and subscribe anyways, because you might find something you do like. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We've been professionally unprofessional.